They're doing it again. The same Democrats who screamed that government shutdowns were dangerous and reckless are now preparing to pull the plug. Why? Because President Trump won't agree to fund health care for illegal aliens, gender surgeries in Guatemala, and DEI programs in Burma. That's right. They'll stop paychecks for our troops, cut off food assistance for struggling mothers, and shut down essential services unless you pay for their radical agenda. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Jack Reed, all on record condemning shutdowns. Now they're the ones lighting the fuse. The deadline is coming, and Democrats are holding America hostage, so do not blink. And while Democrats demand taxpayer-funded illegals health care, real Americans can't afford their own bills. 1 in 4 low-income households spend 15% of their income on electricity alone. These are the same families Democrats claim to champion while choosing between power and food. That's why this little device is so critical. Minimizes dirty electricity, stabilizes current, helps slash those bills Democrats ignore. Just plug it in, works instantly, smoothing electrical flow, protecting appliances. You'll even get a $100 utility rebate certificate. It's now 60% off at don'twastepower.com. While politicians play shutdown games with your money, get real relief. 60-day guarantee. Democrats won't help you, so help yourself. Order at don'twastepower.com. Speaker Johnson outside the White House today, a rare moment, says Democrats are jeopardizing military pay, assistance for women and children in need, and so much more. Listen.
They claw back their counterproposal. What Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are demanding is that they claw back the $50 billion that we put into the rural hospital support structure. They want to take that back. We're not going to do that. We passed that because we have to allow for that. Also, if they shut the government down, not only are troops unpaid, federal workers, and all the services that everybody relies upon, but the WIC program, the nutrition program, women, infant, and children, they will not get that program, will not be funded. FEMA won't be funded. We have hurricanes off the coast of the United States right now. This is serious business. You have telehealth, you have mental health services, all that's funded by the government would stop if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats have their way. The Democrat shutdown would be damaging for the country. We can't allow for it. Their counterproposal.
And here we have more Leader John Thune on the Democrats pulling America towards government shutdown.
Fund the government through this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're talking about. 24 pages. It's a continuing resolution to fund the government through November the 21st. I don't know where they're saying this is some huge partisan thing. This is something we do fairly routinely. And when the Democrats had the majority on 13 different occasions, they had the majority, President Biden was in the White House, we passed continuing resolutions to fund the government. This is purely and simply hostage-taking on behalf of the Democrats. The Republicans are united. House Republicans, Senate Republicans, President Trump. The House has passed a clean funding resolution to fund the government until November the 21st. It's clean, it is bipartisan, and it is short-term. But it gives us enough time to finish the appropriations process, which is the way we should be funding the government. So Republicans in the House, the Senate, President united, they've passed the bill. This is sitting right now at the Senate desk. We could pick it up and pass it tonight. We could pick it up and pass it tomorrow before the government shuts down. And then we don't have a government shutdown. It is totally up to the Democrats because right now they are the only thing standing between the American people and the government shutting down. We're all in favor of funding the government. And this is something that's been done routinely 13 different times by the Democrats when they had the majority. So it's to me, it's purely a hostage-taking exercise on the part of the Democrats. We are willing to sit down and work with them on some of the issues they want to talk about, whether it's the extension of premium tax credits with reforms. We're happy to have that conversation. But as of right now, this is a hijacking of the American people, and it's the American people who are going to pay the price. This right.
A hijacking of the American people. Wow. J.D. Vance. Don't normally see him doing a gaggle at the White House, but here it happened today.
We just had a very frank conversation with the Senate and House Democratic leadership. Look, the principle at stake here is very simple. We have disagreements about tax policy, but you don't shut that government down. We have disagreements about health care policy, but you don't shut the government down. You don't use your policy disagreements as leverage to not pay our troops, to not have essential services of government actually function. You don't say the fact that you disagree about a particular tax provision is an excuse for for shutting down the people's government and all the essential services that come along with it. If you look at what Chuck Schumer has said in the past consistently, it's whatever our disagreements are, let's negotiate with them, let's talk about them, let's figure out a bipartisan solution, but you don't shut the government down. In other words, you don't put a gun to the American people's head and say, unless you do exactly what Senate and House Democrats want you to do, we're going to shut down your government. That's exactly what they're proposing out there. Now, we have to remember, they're very frustrated. They say that they're very frustrated about the fact that this negotiation has not taken place until today. But if you look at the original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care, while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray into this negotiation. We thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd, and now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous. We think it's totally unacceptable, and we think the American people are going to suffer because these guys won't do the right thing. Now, I want to make one final point here. You will hear a lot from Senate Democrats, from House Democrats about the fact that American health care policy is broken. Well, we know that American health care policy is broken. We've been trying to fix it for the 8 months that we've been in office, but every single thing that they accuse about being broken about American health care is policy the Democrats have supported for the past decade. So if they want to talk about how to fix American health care policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together, but let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do, and the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind, but we're going to see. We just had a very frank...
Wow. And of course, we have Hakeem Jeffries says Republicans are to blame.
And Republicans control the House, Republicans control the Senate, and Donald Trump is the president. If the government shuts down, it's because Republicans have decided to shut the government down and hurt the American people. And that's a point that we made loudly and clearly.
You said people are going to die?
It was a frank and sharp discussion about the path forward. We made clear that we are ready, willing, and able over these next 36 or so hours to find a bipartisan path forward, to fund the government and avoid a shutdown. But any agreement must be bipartisan in nature, and it's got to meet the needs of the American people in terms of their health, safety, and economic well-being. Republicans control the House.
Oh, but let's see. Where's the clip here? Crazy Bernie once called a government shutdown serious and dangerous action we must do everything possible to prevent.
The truth is that shutting down the government is a serious and dangerous action that we must do everything possible to prevent. Shutting down the government would impact tens of millions of our fellow Americans who would be unable to access government services. It would severely impact federal employees who would not get the paychecks they expected. It would also have a very significant impact on our armed forces. In other words, we must do everything that we can to prevent a government shutdown. The truth is that shutting down the government is a serious...
And let's see, we got this clip here. This is Caitlin Collins outside the White House asking J.D. Vance a question.
Subsidies. On to what Senator Schumer said, that there were aspects about health care ending for certain people that the president was learning about for the first time in that meeting. And was the president open to a deal on the ACA subsidies?
Well, I'm highly skeptical that the president was learning about it for the first time thanks to Chuck Schumer. But what I will say is, look, we have put a $50 billion rural hospital fund into the big, beautiful bill that we passed a few months ago, because we know that under Biden administration's policies, there are a lot of small town hospitals, a lot of rural health care that was getting shut down and that was struggling. We're trying to fix that problem. In fact, we're happy to work with Democrats to fix that problem. We want to work across the aisle to make sure that people have access to good health care. We are not going to let Democrats shut down the government, take a hostage, unless we give them everything that they want. That's not how the people's government has ever worked. That's certainly not how it's going to work under the Trump administration.
Oh, but did you see this? Senator Eric Schmitt on Democrats shutting down the government. This is what their plan is.
Guatemalan sect. Their plan is to spend an additional $1 trillion to restore all the things that we rescinded, like Guatemalan sex changes and DEI in Burma. They want all that back, and they want health care for illegal immigrants. That's what they're fighting for. But again, they want to be perceived as the resistance more than a party that's willing to govern. And this is the time, I think, where we come together, fund the government, give us time to continue to work on appropriations bills. But the ball really is in their court. The Republicans are pretty unified here, and this is something, again, that Democrats have advocated for in the past. Their plan is to
spend $1 trillion to restore the things we rescinded. Remember when DOGE went in and cut all that garbage out of USAID? Guatemalan sex changes, DEI in Burma, healthcare for illegals? Yeah. That's what they're fighting for. They want your money to go to that. NEC Director Kevin Hassett on the president's meeting with Democrats.
President's their ask is completely unreasonable. And the fact is that for previous Democratic administrations, presidents always said, look, give us a clean continuing resolution. Right. Give us a clean continuing resolution. That is, keep the government open. Don't shut the government down. And the last 13 times that it happened under Biden, then it happened clean. And so the bottom line is that they're trying to get some leverage where they don't have any. And I think Russ Vought really called their bluff.
You think so? You think they're going to back down? Will there be a peace treaty in the meeting today, or who knows?
President Trump is a very persuasive guy, and we can hope for the best, that the Democrats don't shoot themselves in the foot. But they have been shooting themselves in the foot an awful lot lately.
J.D. Vance, you heard him say it. We're heading towards a shutdown. Here is Senator Jack Reed in 2023.
Cost a government shutdown of any
Democrat, Rhode Island, chairman of the Armed Services Committee.
A government shutdown of any duration would harm hardworking Americans and our economy. Shutdowns cost taxpayers billions of dollars per week. They cost businesses money. They could even cause a downgrade to the nation's credit rating. And they force an unnecessary disruption of many vital services. Federal workers in all 50 states who perform essential work, like food inspectors, TSA agents, or park rangers, would stop getting paychecks. A government shutdown.
And that's exactly what the Democrats want. Pocahontas once railed against government shutdowns.
Resolution, the least we can do, the bare minimum that we can do, would be to pass a continuing resolution, keep the doors open and the lights on. We can ensure that over 1 million federal workers aren't simply sent home for no reason. We can avoid a government shutdown. This is democracy. And in a democracy, hostage tactics are the last resort for those who can't win their fights through elections, can't win their fights in Congress, can't win their fights for the presidency, and can't win their fights in the courts.
Okay. Did you hear what she just said? She used the term hostage, the same term that J.D. Vance, House Speaker Johnson said, hostage, right? And then she said, these are the tactics used by people who can't win. Now, I'm going to play it back, but watch it in the context of right now and who didn't win any of those positions. Holy cow. So crazy.
Now, this is democracy. And in a democracy, hostage tactics are the last resort for those who can't win their fights through elections, can't win their fights in Congress, can't win their fights for the presidency, and can't win their fights in the courts.
That's exactly what the Democrats are doing right now, because they couldn't win any of that. Oh, this is too good.
For this right-wing minority, hostage-taking is all they have left.
Wow. Oh, wow. Where is that clip? This is the high. Okay, this is when Speaker John Thune said
this is some huge partisan thing. This is something we do fairly routinely. And when the Democrats had the majority on 13 different occasions, they had the majority. President Biden was in the White House. They had the majority. So it's to me, it's purely a hostage-taking exercise on the part of the Democrats. We're willing.
A hostage. Oh, my Lord. Wow. This is crazy. It's so funny when their own words come back to bite them in the ass. Here's the press secretary on Fox News.
Democrats, the leverage is in the president's hands because the overwhelming majority of the American public wants to keep the government open. I mean, it's not even close. Democrats and Republicans, independents across the country want the government funded because they want our military and our troops to be paid. They want TSA agents and Border Patrol to be paid. They want food assistance programs for women and children in impoverished communities to continue going out the door. All of that will come to an end if Democrats vote against this clean CR that Republicans are proposing. And might I just add, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are on the record multiple times in their past political lives stating that they too believe a government shutdown is bad. In fact, I quote, Chuck Schumer just last year in 2024 said a shutdown would mean chaos and pain and needless heartache for the American people. Well, we hope that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats won't cause chaos and pain and heartache. We want our country to continue to be funded. We want our government to be open so we can continue doing the business of the American people. The leverage.
This is wild. Here is, let's see, Steve Scalise 24 hours ago.
Hakeem actually, we passed a bill through the House to keep the government from shutting down. Hakeem actually whipped his members to shut the government down. He voted that way. But luckily, we were able to get the bill passed. So right now it's over in the Senate, and it's on Chuck Schumer and Democrats in the Senate to keep the government from shutting down. And I hope they'll come to their senses and do that early next week. We passed.
Here's more from Speaker Johnson on Fox.
Do you think you'll be able to avoid a shutdown?
Well, I certainly hope so. The purpose of the meeting is so that the president can assemble the four leaders, the two top leaders in both chambers, to come in and have this discussion. And I've talked with him at length yesterday about this, and he's going to tell Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries to stop playing political games. What's really important to point out here, Maria, I'm glad you mentioned the national debt. The statutes in federal law require Congress to do 12 separate appropriations bills every year. That's the only way to ensure stewardship of taxpayer funds, to spend less money and make government more responsible. The problem is, as you and I both know, and we've lamented before, Congress hasn't really worked that way in a long time. Typically, instead, what we have is a giant omnibus spending bill at the end of the year because the can is kicked down the road all the way to that point. We've been forcing the muscle memory back, Maria, and the good news is we are at great length, great effort. We've got Congress to work again. The House Appropriations Committee did great work. They did 12 separate appropriations bills through the committee. 3 were passed off the floor. 3 bills are passed off the Senate floor. They don't match exactly. So for the first time since 2019, we have an actual conference committee between the two chambers to work out the differences. All this is working very well, but we need more time because the end of the fiscal year is September 30th. So what do we do? Logically, we passed a continuing resolution, a simple, very clean, 24-page continuing resolution to keep the government open for 7 more weeks so the appropriators can finish that process. And what did Chuck Schumer do in exchange for that? He declined it. They voted against it. And he said, no, instead, I want to add $1.5 trillion in new spending to a 7-week stopgap bill. And I want to, as you mentioned, we want to reinstate free health care to illegal aliens paid for by U.S. taxpayer dollars. We want to claw back the $50 billion that we passed, Republicans passed, in our big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cuts, to provide for rural hospital and health care, and a laundry list of other partisan priorities. He knows it's a non-starter. He's trying to, quote, show a fight against Trump, and it makes absolutely no sense.
What do you...
Nothing makes sense from these people. Nothing makes sense at all. Oh, Senator Fetterman weighing in.
Where are you on this issue, and do you expect a government shutdown Tuesday night?
where I'm at, where I've always been, and I will always remain on, is it is always, always wrong to shut our government down. That is a core responsibility. I'm always going to vote against those things.
Where are...
Wow. Senator Fetterman, the lone voice of reason on the Democrat Party. Never thought I'd say that. If you got value of this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So this is economic warfare against the American people. Democrats who once called shutdowns dangerous and reckless now weaponize them to force you to pay for illegal alien health care, foreign gender programs, and radical DEI initiatives. They're willing to starve military families, cut off aid to struggling mothers, and crash essential services, all because Trump won't cave to their insanity. You see, the math is simple. Republicans passed a clean continuing resolutions. Democrats voted it down. Republicans want to keep government open. Democrats want $1 trillion ransom for their pet projects. Steve Scalise nailed it. House Republicans did their job. Democrats chose chaos. So when paychecks stop and services shut down, remember who did this. It wasn't Trump. It wasn't Republicans. Democrats who hate this president more than they love this country did. So here's my question. Should Republicans hold firm and refuse to fund any Democrat wish list items? Drop a yes or a no. Flood those comments. Your voice matters. And grab our merch. It's linked down below, and show them we will not back down.